So you're not going to believe this. We're going to war. Oh boy. It's looking real bad over there, folks. Not exactly subtle. An enormous amount of armor has been moved from the United States and from military bases across Europe down to bases adjacent to Iran. Looking real clear cut. I'm not gonna lie. Here, where was that graphic posted by the guy who wrote the book explaining the logic of suicide bombing? That's how you know he's a real one. This represents 40 to 50% of the deployable U.S. air power in the world. Think air power on the order of the 1991 or 2003 Iraq War. And growing. Never has the U.S. deployed this much force against potential enemy and not launched strikes. It's a lot. See, last time we just did one bombing run, you know? This time, I don't know. This is not one bombing run worth of bombs, you know? What's the goal with Iran? Utter servile worship of Israel. I don't know what you want. We're about to have an all-out war. Well, here's the thing, okay? We don't have boots on the ground, and we're probably not going to have boots on the ground. I saw a bunch of discourse on this, and I'm trying to parse what I think is right. I can't see the future, and honestly, I'm not a military expert, so I'm kind of guessing. I'm sort of stabbing into the air here. It is looking very, 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 very bad here. 15,000 troops were just sent. We cannot do a boots on the ground operation in Iran. We would not do good there. It is a big country. It is a big, real country. What we're probably going to do is vaporize them from the air. It's looking really, 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 really bad. Yeah, all the C-17A flights, the amount of armor we've been dropping off, probably a fuck ton of ammunition. Limited boots on the ground. So here's the gist, okay? Why are we so question number one, why are we doing this? Well, for one, right now the Iranian regime is extremely weak. They're economically in turmoil. They're not looking good economically. Their population is extremely upset with the government because you might recall there was just a big protest uprising and a bunch of civilians were slaughtered by the IRGC, which is not good. Also, the Ayatollah is like 500 years old. Not great. Not great for Iran, I mean. So I guess they are perceived as being very vulnerable right now. That being said, I don't think that's the reason in and of itself, because Iran right now is vulnerable in a way that it will continue to be for years and years to come. Like, Iran's regime is on a decline that cannot be... It's not going to be, like, fixed by a sudden change in leadership. If the Ayatollah died and was replaced with a new one, it's not as though they would instantly, like, be better. This isn't like a temporary weak point. This is just the country is on the decline. So, like, why now? Well, another reason for why now, I think, is because we all need to die for Israel, right? Israel needs constant war. Their economy needs constant war. Their people need constant war. The people of Israel are bloodthirsty, and politically they desire constant war. As you might recall from the lovely conversation between Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, our ambassador to Israel, the U.S. officially endorses the existence of Greater Israel. Not a joke. Like, Huckabee is an envoy of the United States. He is an ambassador to Israel for the United States. If he says that he doesn't mind the idea of Israel returning to its biblical borders, that's an official statement from the United States. He's not just a random guy. He's not just like a random congressman, right? Where their statements are reflective only of their own opinion and I guess general sentiment. He's the ambassador to the to Israel, to the country being described. So you can take that as an endorsement from the government. How big is the Middle East? At least the size of Texas. Nobody knows for sure. Let me just get a map of Greater Israel up so we can remind ourselves. Here we go. In response to the interview between Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, where Huckabee endorsed this map, a coalition of Arab countries denounced expansionist intentions by Israel and U.S. endorsement of such. Like, even countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia were basically saying, America, what the fuck? Which, considering how much these countries are puppets of Western, fossil fuel interests, and Jordan. Jordan is like a straight ally of the United States. But yeah, obviously, Greater Israel, as described by what many people consider to be its biblical borders, again, it's nonsense, but that's what they say, involves taking about a third of Saudi Arabia, half of Iraq, 2/3 of Syria, all of Jordan, all of Lebanon, and a significant chunk of Egypt, including Cairo, which is, of course, it's a big city. How does Egypt feel about this? Not good. Egypt doesn't like Israel. In fact, none of these countries like Israel. Nobody here likes Israel. The only reason these countries have been willing to play ball with Israel is because doing so has been a prerequisite for having good relations with the United States. That's it. Not even Jordan likes Israel. Not really. But like broadly, no, they're not happy here. Oh, we take a little bit of Kuwait and Turkey too. Let's not forget about this, you know? Let's not forget there. This is all of Egypt. Nobody lives in the other areas. That is true. Yeah. Taking this is basically taking all of Egypt. So to be clear, here's where we're at right now. In an interview with a former Fox News pundit, Tucker Carlson, Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel, essentially endorsed the... Get that clip up for me, please. I'm talking too much to search right now. Give me the clip, please. Essentially endorsed the idea that Israel had the right to take Greater Israel. Huckabee explicitly rejected any kind of like international treaty or rules-based international order that would deny Israel the right to do this, right? I think we might be pushing for the end game on the whole death cult thing, in my opinion. I'll explain this more in a second. Let me just play this clip first.
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God.
Bosch, this will never happen. Israel would have to start World War III to get this map. I need you to understand that a significant number of people in Israel, not just their government, are A-okay with starting World War III to get this map. The other countries that have started world wars historically have also gone for big land place. Like World War II was also driven by Lebensraum, if you recall. It's they tend to do this kind of thing.
The news that his descendants will inherit the land, and you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant, so that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean...
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
Implicitly, Greater Israel will involve the displacement and genocide of more than 150 million people? Yes. And to be clear, if America endorsed this project and supported it with their full back, we would be able to do it. There's basically no limit to how many people we're capable of killing and displacing. We're the United States. Prolonged military engagements are one thing, but it's not like the militaries in the region would really pose a long-term threat. Not if we work together with Israel. This is an achievable prospect for Israel. And keep in mind, for decades and decades now, we have been giving them everything they want. Those people are insane, and they've been given every reason to believe they can keep getting away with whatever they want. Violate international law, we protect them. 1,000 UN resolutions to condemn them, we protect them. They run out of ammunition for the Iron Dome, we protect them. They run out of money, we protect them. Why wouldn't they think they could do it?
It would be a lot of places that are now countries that...
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is...
Israel's population is not that big. They won't be able to do it. Why are you taking it seriously? Respectfully, why are you being retarded? You're basically, you're in 1938 right now saying that Germany's expansionist ambitions are meaningless because they can never control the world. Do you understand how you sound? Think for a second about history. It's not even about whether or not they can do it. Dude, Germany would never be able to literally make a 1,000-year Reich. At most, they could get 100 years. What are you talking about? It's not about whether or not they succeed. I don't want to live in the world where they fail either. I don't want them to even try.
Is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started on this.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Again, he's an ambassador from the United States. His statements on this matter are like official policy. again, like what he's describing here is that he would be okay with Israel starting World War III and that the United States would back it. So with that in mind, in response to this interview, basically every single country in the region except for Israel got together and wrote a letter saying, hey, please don't start World War III. You people are fucking crazy. A coalition of Arab and Muslim nations has condemned in the strongest terms statements made by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin... Oh, I'm sorry. This is about Benjamin Netanyahu. Where's the other article that I had open? Because Netanyahu's been talking about Greater Israel for years now. Where's the other article that I had open? The one where they were responding specifically to the statements from Huckabee. Let me see if I can find it. I'm pretty bad at searching. This? You'll probably find it faster than me. He does look like a weather report guy. Yeah, here we go. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sparks backlash from Arab nations with Israel remarks. He said it would be fine if Israel took control of land that would include a huge swath of the Middle East. Right. Huge amount of condemnation, etc., so on and so forth. All this proves the only way you can be safe out there as a nation state is to get nukes on day one. Yes, that is true. Okay, so let's get back to where we're at right now. Okay, so my opinion, my personal opinion, is that a lot of very powerful, very evil people see that they believe that Trump's administration is their last chance to weaponize a fully functional United States government in favor of their interests. Much the same way that oligarchs are looting the government right now and plundering this country for everything that it has because they think that the jig's up once the Trump is replaced or whatever else. Not necessarily because Dems aren't complicit, but because these people are so evil and so greedy that only Trump's level of corruption would satisfy them. My worry, my theory, I guess, is that many of the same interests that value our relationship with Israel see Trump's declining window as the deadline for replacing Iran. That no other government will be able to do this. No Democratic government would be crazy enough, and no Republican other than Trump would be able to. This is our chance. It's not because Iran is weak, it's because America is weak. We're looking to take advantage of this window we have where Trump gets away with every single thing that he does. Is it just me, or are European NATO members pretty quiet regarding this? Yes, that's because the rest of NATO is pretty much on board with this. NATO is fine with us replacing Iran. The Democrats themselves, for the most part, are fine with us replacing Iran. Much in the same way that our illegal operation to arrest Maduro and kidnap him from Venezuela was not met with significant condemnation from the Democrats, they are fine with this too, because a lot of them are beholden to the same interests, just not, to the same extent. These people are infinicucks, basically. Democrats might not represent the Christian fundamentalists, but they do represent the MIC groups that are in favor of this. Very, very, very bad. Israel's already moving to take Jordan in the future. Israel's already positioned to invade Lebanon. We know they want infinite war. There's plenty of evidence to indicate that. It's not exactly like a controversial position. We know what they're trying to do here, Very, 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 very bad. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, said to Fox News yesterday that Iran is about a week away from having the ability to make nuclear weapons. You heard that one before? Just a couple of months ago, they said that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated, but I mean, you pull this one out. Just a week away, man, just a week away. For decades and decades and decades and decades, just a week away. WMD type shit? Well, yeah, they're literally WMDs, so, Meanwhile, Iran bought $500 million worth of anti-air from Russia to prepare for the invasion. Inshallah, may they strike true. You have given me a Financial Times article where because I don't have a subscription, it says only $300 for your first year. So I believe what you're saying. Bosh, but this shit would irreparably damage the liberal world order. Yeah, and? Do you see where we are? What we're on? What's happening? Yeah? The Democrats had the opportunity to stop this after October 7th. It was very obvious where we were going and how quickly we were going there. But Democrats took every opportunity to indicate that they were not willing to challenge Israel on anything that they did. And so they didn't, and then nothing changed. And now we're here. Gift link? Thank you. Iran agreed secret shoulder-fired missile deal with Russia. So here's my theory, okay? We can't send full boots on the ground into Iran because it is a massive populous nation full of mountains, and actual street fighting with the IRGC or the Iranian military would claim a lot of American lives. It's also a really tough country to bomb. A lot of their military facilities are probably at least partially armored, though we could still get, most of it, right? It's bombs. You can get through a lot of bombs. A lot of stuff. My thinking here is just we're going to try to do maximal damage in an effort to displace the leadership and replace them with a Western puppet. Probably the prince, the crown prince, the son of the Shah. Who knows exactly? It might be someone else. It might be somebody else. From Iran's perspective, what they're probably hoping for is maximum damage directed towards us. In the past, Iran has responded rationally to Western aggression. When we or when Israel attacked them, they always kept a light touch in response. All of the big, like, Iranian strikes that they've directed outwards have mostly been performative shoulder taps that they've done to avoid losing face. For the most part, Iran has not really made an effort to retaliate because they know that if they did, it could incur worse damage. It's possible now they understand there's nothing they can do to avoid the conflict, and their only hope is to inflict so much damage to American and Israel forces that it becomes politically unviable to continue. Are you talking strikes in U.S. soil? No. Iran can't make any strikes in U.S. soil. They don't have the technology. At least not, like, to a reasonable extent. You know, they could do, like, terror plots, but they couldn't do organized strikes. So it's possible that their hope is just to shoot down as many American planes, Israeli planes as possible, see what they can do. I don't really know. Yeah. We're literally pushing them to kill Americans. Keep in mind, this is being done at the behest of people who want the world to end. I promise you they don't care about American casualties. That's the reason why every Zionist in America clearly loves Israel more than America. Like I said yesterday, there is nothing more for America to do. The biblical prophecy does not require any more action on the part of America. Nothing needs to be done in its borders or with its people. The only remaining action that needs to be taken is within Israel. That is why they act the way that they do. Remember that clip we saw from the, I forget who, it was like one of the reps from the Department of State, that lady who was talking with a Jewish woman who was like breathlessly talking about how she wished she was born Jewish? That was an acolyte zealously, like expressing admiration for a kamikaze pilot. Understand all of this takes place in that context. None of these people view Judaism as like a religious practice or whatever. It's just a biblical sacrifice. This clip from Religious is pretty apparent. What is Religious? What is this? Religious. This is a movie. You think I can play a movie on stream? You have a very high opinion of my ability to resist copyright strikes. Israel would nuke the entire world if it meant achieving greater Israel, so why are we feeding and procuring the beast that will bite our heads off? I keep telling you, it's a death cult. They want to end the world. It's not an exaggeration. It's not an overstatement. It is a death cult. Death cult. They don't care. It's not. There's no like rational like. Well, wouldn't that hurt people? You're not operating on the same moral axis here. They are evil. I wonder what's going to happen when it doesn't happen. You know, a lot of people are really banking on this conflict. Not just this one specifically, but like the broader Middle Eastern Israeli conflict to pan out into the rapture. I wonder what's going to happen when this all like dies down or when this petals out, you know? What, they think it's going to happen in another 100 years? This is what you were talking about with Susie Wiles? I think it was Susie Wiles. Was it? No. It was a video interview that I remember. I don't think it was Susie Wiles. She was just like breathlessly talking about how she wishes she was Jewish. The Senator Bill Maher interviews in the clip literally has him state that he foresees the end times being summoned by a nuclear strike in the Middle East and Israel. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Who was the senator? Was he a Christian evangelical? Lindsey Graham is constantly worrying Trump will flip-flop on this. Yeah, Lindsey Graham is one of the most aggressive Zionist advocates in the Republican Party. Really zealous, really outspoken. He has been for a long time. You're never going to guess which religious group he belongs to. I'm not going to say the religion of the Republican senator who wants the world to end over Israel. It's an evangelical senator. Yeah. Well, let's get the mainstream news' look on this. Let's see CNN talk about like how this is necessary. Oh, you're right. This is it. Hold on. This is good to look at. I think that a lot of behavior like this makes a lot more sense when you understand where it comes from.
Tammy Bruce, State Department spokeswoman, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here. I got to ask you right off the bat, I've seen a media report that says that you're Jewish, and I looked through your social media history before you took over at the State Department, full of affinity for the Jewish people. You remind me a little bit of my grandma, just tough as nails. So it's of interest to our audience. Are you Jewish?
I am not, and sadly not. I am Italian, which I've always thought maybe the Italians were the lost tribe, so that could be the dynamic there. But you know, it's I'm honored. I don't mind people thinking that at all. I do recall. It's interesting. After the October 7th attacks, I went to a jeweler in the World Trade Center to get the Star of David to wear on the air, and he knows me, and he said, "But you know, people will think you're Jewish," and I said, "I hope so." And the point is that at a time like that, and certainly throughout history, is that we all have to be Jewish. We all have to be recognized as this is about humanity, about the nature also of the Jewish people and the Western civilization that we all enjoy that make life worth living. The nature of the Judeo-Christian ethic, the impact of the Jewish people throughout history, the inventions, the medicine, the education that is delivered by Israel, but really the Jewish people around the world. It is, you have, I've thought and I've said before, you have really two options with the Jewish people.
Just keeps going.
You can be envious or you can be grateful. And I am enormously grateful for the nature of living this life in a modern age, with also knowing the nature is, for our world,
we're on 2 minutes now,
really from the beginning of time, the nature of violence, of suffering, of life being difficult for so many, and the dynamic of whether or not we become victims perpetually, and the struggle of the Jewish people and the survival of Jews around the world through millennia shows us that, in fact, yes, sometimes things will be difficult, that envy does drive awful things, but that, in fact, you don't need to become a victim, that it is about looking forward
2.5 minutes.
for family, for the future, and for really the rest of the world. So it's been an exciting trajectory for me in dealing with politics and culture. And of course, the people who've influenced me, who've been very generous with me, it really had an impact on my sense of what matters and what we should be grateful for.
3 minutes. Good, great. That is the response that I was talking about. And I think that what a lot of people, including to an extent myself, thought when we saw this was, wow, like we actually are slaves to Israel. Like, holy shit. She's a representative of the Department of State. This is a level of like unfathomable, like fealty. Like what an insane set of things to say. What loyalty pledge are you taking? It's insane. But I think it makes a lot more sense when you realize this government is almost completely controlled by evangelicals. Remember that to them, the Jews are the chosen people, but they're God's chosen in the sense that their ass is getting put in the fire. Like, evangelicals don't think Jews are going to heaven. What they do think is that Jews are a kind of like original precursor Abrahamic people who exist to be sacrificed as Christ returns. They think they're like a catalyst or an instrument to bring about the end of the world. A summon item, exactly. So from her perspective, like all of this, it's about like it's like cheering a kamikaze pilot. You know what I mean? It goes beyond like, oh, I think the Jews are the best or whatever else, and more towards like well, we know what they're about to do for us. And I think that's the perspective from a lot of these people. You know. Keep in mind, like, it goes a lot deeper than you think. Evangelicals are massively overrepresented in American government and in American governmental faith circles. If you take a look at like, like Republican prayer breakfasts or like the statements they make or the shit they say when they're doing their little like pre-vote prayer, the shit like Mike Johnson leads in the House, you know, these people are largely evangelicals, right? They're from top to bottom, from the donor class to the politicians to the supporters. They're all throughout the government, and that is their belief. Like, this is what they think is going to happen. My dad's a pastor, and everything you say about evangelical Christianity is exactly correct. I just don't want to get any. I just like to be clear. Like, we are genuinely pushing on World War III here. Like, a conflict between Israel and the entire Middle East is one that could only end in either extensive American intervention or nuclear Armageddon. It's a holy war that we're co-signing because enough. They think a third of all Jews will go to heaven. I've heard different accounts. Some evangelicals will grit their teeth and be like, no, we think the good Jews will go to heaven. But I think there's a lot of, I've heard a lot of hemming and hawing there. Textually, I don't think there's a definite answer on it. And the implication that I get from a lot of these people in the way they talk about Jews on their own time is that they do not think these guys are going to heaven. Why do evangelicals infest the government so much? Because there's never been an effective counterplay to them. It's the same reason Mormons have a weird amount of power in the government and why Scientologists have a weird amount of power in Hollywood. I'm sorry, guys, and I hate to be Reddit atheist about it. We need to be a lot more Reddit atheist. It is a complete taboo to criticize Christianity in this country, and as a consequence, the craziest Christians have infiltrated every level of government. Like, I'm sorry, like, literally nobody can, at any level, from the most minute local office to the presidency, no one can ever say, holy shit, these radical Christians who believe that, like, creationism is real and climate change isn't anthropogenic or it's not real at all. These people are like a global threat and nobody can talk about it. We can't talk about it. All we can do is talk about Islam. Islam. There is no Islamic government in the world capable of doing as much damage as we're trying to do right now, right here. A coalition between a Christian and a Jewish government. We are the ones fighting for World War III right now. Yeah, it's not great. Anyway, let me see. What are we? Anyone? Is this it? This is CNN talking about the fact that we're sending an unprecedented military buildup adjacent to Iran. This is what we got.
Admiral, let me begin with you. Tell me about the firepower that we've assembled.
Could this bankrupt the U.S.? The U.S. went bankrupt a long time ago, buddy. A long time ago.
In the Middle East.
You started with a comparison to 2003. It's also like 1990, Persian Gulf War I. This is a huge amount of U.S. firepower. And let's kind of do it from the outside in, if you will, in concentric rings descending like Dante's Inferno. On the outer rings are big strategic bombers. They can come.
I don't want to listen to this fucking guy. Here's Fox News pretending we're not the warmongers here. Military buildup around Iran has the region on the brink of war. Whose military buildup, I wonder?
Shannon, good morning. Protests erupted this weekend at Iranian universities for the first time since the regime crackdown earlier this year. Students chanted "Long live the king" and freedom as they marched through their campuses.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday marked their return to a new semester and renewed demonstrations against the government. In the capital of Tehran, Iran's president did not address the protests directly, but spoke broadly about the ongoing international pressure against Iran.
We will not bow down in the face of any of these difficulties. World powers are lining up with cowardice to force us to bow our heads. Just as you did not bow in the face of difficulties, we will not bow down in the face of these problems.
Iranian officials told Reuters that indirect talks between the U.S. and Iran are set to resume in early March, but that views differ over the scope and mechanism for sanctions relief.
Our only hope moving forward with this is that it really, truly does not seem like Trump wants war. And the reason for that is because he just likes being the guy who solved war in the Middle East forever. So if war happens again, it means he didn't solve war in the Middle East forever. By being egotistical and stupid and senile, he's mentally above the death cult evangelical politics, which is great, I guess.
The comments come amid an ongoing military buildup in the Middle East that continues.
Bro, the U.S. is so bad they're making an Iranian theocratic dictatorship look better to them. The Iranian government is objectively the good power in this conflict between Israel, the United States, and Iran. This is like objective, and if you disagree, you're insane. Israel and America right now are posturing World War III, potential nuclear conflict, for no reason other than because we want to end the world in a bigger way. The idea, like, it's, and this is not in any way an endorsement of the Iranian government, because I know I'm going to get emails. The government's very, very evil, but like, holy shit, we're taught like the evil power scaling is going crazy over here, man. Jesus Christ. It's the goddamn Shibuya arc.
This hour, overnight, more C-17
Everyone was like,
transport
Mahito
planes
goes crazy. They didn't
across
realize
the Atlantic Ocean, and
fucking
reports indicate
Yuji
at a
was gonna have
single
15
Jordanian
fingers in him or
airbase,
something type
there are
shit.
now
I was sleepy
60
when I watched
attack
it.
aircraft and 68 cargo planes. With the region on the brink of war, a UN spokesperson is calling for diplomatic efforts to prevail.
And I can tell you and reiterate yet again that we are very concerned about the heightened rhetoric we're seeing around the region, by the heightened military activities, war games, or just military, increased military naval presence and in the region. And we encourage both the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran to continue.
What's his name? The guy who debated Destiny. Sir, we have confined into the prison realm. We are finally ready to engage in a nuclear strike in Tehran. Come on, what was his, it starts with an N? Norm Finkelstein, yeah.
To engage in diplomacy in order to settle the differences.
Here in Israel, people are bracing for conflict to begin any day.
Yeah.
Tonight, the Israeli Security Cabinet will meet to determine what comes next.
Yeah.
Shannon?
All right, Trey Yings, thank you very much.
Incredible, truly.
Now to other news. In the U.S. military building up in the Middle East as President Trump weighs new strikes against Iran. The region on edge with Iran vowing to retaliate against any military strikes.
I'm sure the NAFO freaks are salivating over this. Yeah, if you look up Iran right now on YouTube, all of the independent channels right now are basically like, you know, Iran's about to find out why Americans don't have health care. Did you know their missiles aren't as good as our missiles? Like, I maybe not all of them, but that's the sentiment that I get every time I see independent media talk about it. They're just like gleefully, you know, awaiting our vaporization of Tehran.
Here's ABC's chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell.
With the region on edge, a fresh wave of protests in Iran. Many chanting, "Long live the king." A few hundred protesters seen in the capital Tehran after a bloody crackdown that left thousands dead just weeks ago. The demonstrations come amid mounting U.S. pressure on the regime. President Trump confirming the U.S. is considering a limited strike on Iran to force it to agree to a nuclear deal. But today, Iran's President Pezeshkian defiant, saying we won't bow down in the face of pressure from world powers.
They better negotiate a fair deal. You know, the people of Iran are a lot different than the leaders of Iran. And it's very, very sad situation.
Satellite images show the USS Gerald Ford sailing into the Mediterranean. It'll be joined by more than 100 cargo planes, refueling tankers, and fighter jets. The USS Abraham Lincoln strike group already in position. All told, there are around 35,000 US troops now in the region. Tonight, US officials telling ABC News they're relocating hundreds of personnel at a major military base in Qatar ahead of a possible strike on Iran.
I thought Trump destroyed their nuclear capabilities. That's what Trump was saying. Trump's like, what the fuck? Why are we... Trump is not the one coordinating the movement of arms into position around Iran right now. Hegseth is probably taking orders directly from the people who actually make the decisions. I don't really know. There's a bunch of potential contenders. It wouldn't be somebody like Miller, though. You know, Miller does like domestic policy, but this is like powers that be that go beyond. Netanyahu himself is just like an envoy of great... I assume that this is largely like a coalition of economic interests that are making these that are making these calls.
Another round of diplomatic talks is expected, but Iran warning if it is attacked, it'll respond decisively, and that all US bases, facilities, and assets of what it calls hostile forces would be legitimate targets. Rachel, as the US amasses its largest military force in the Middle East in years, the diplomatic process is still technically on track, but there are growing concerns that unless Iran makes major concessions on its nuclear program, then an attack by the US might be unavoidable. Rachel?
President Trump urging
an attack on the U.S. If any people in media you see that talk like this, they are paid and complicit. I mean, they might as well be completely... Wait, did he say by the U.S.? Did he say by? Hold on. If I misheard, that's on me. If I misheard, that's on me.
Concerns that unless Iran makes major concessions on its nuclear program, then an attack by the U.S.
By the U.S. My apologies. Not as though the narrative that Iran wants to strike the United States is exactly foreign to these people, but no, okay, that's my apologies. He said, no, I didn't hear the first time. I can't believe that he had the audacity to misspeak the first time that the clip played, but then he corrected himself when I went back. Really makes me look like a fool. Are you ready to die for evangelicals? No, because Iran has no ability to strike the United States. They do not have the technology. So, you know. Yeah, guys, seriously, it's pretty bleak over there. A lot of people have predicted that they'll attack end of market Friday to avoid, give it a bit of buffer time before the markets crash. I don't really know if we're going to wait another, 5 days to see how it all plays out. That's classically when you do stuff like this. In your opinion, if Iran got a lucky shot and sank a U.S. warship or took down a couple of planes, do you think American people would be angry at Trump? I have no idea. Keep in mind that the entire media and political class are backing Trump up on this. Democrats, if Iran defends itself, legally defends itself, and takes down American ships or boats, the American media class and the Democrats will all say, like, well, fuck them for that. I guarantee you the broad response, even from left of center media, will not be, well, Iran was defending itself from a fucking war, you jackass, Like, you can't condemn Trump for illegally starting a war and then be mad when the people you're attacking defend themselves. I have no idea how it's going to play out. I do think, though, that given the state that Iran is in right now and the state of the Middle East and the state of America, Iran is probably making the call that you can't sit on your hands anymore, and the only hope is to, like, fight back as hard as you can. What could Iran do against America? Not that much. I don't even know if they'd be able to. Like, we have carrier groups, 2 of them out there. I don't know if, I mean, you could just hope to get lucky with a lucky drone or a lucky, cruise missile. I have no idea. I don't know. I have no idea. But why Iran? For Israel. Is it the nuclear power? Iran doesn't have nukes. Iran isn't on the Greater Israel map. It doesn't matter. Iran is the regional power. Iran is like the threat. Without Iran, Israel would have much more control over the region. They'd be able to do what they want. They would have more influence in Syria. They'd have more in Lebanon. They'd have more in Iraq. Iran is the big impediment there, What do you mean by saying Iran could have backed so hard it's politically unviable to commit for the USA? I just mean it's possible. I don't know if it's likely, but maybe, like, it seems like the calculation from Iran's end here would be, like, if you do maximum damage, maybe we're just unwilling to continue the fight because America has gotten really unused to combat casualties on our end. Like, we value our troops so highly. Like, Biden permanently lost like 8% approval rating over losing 12 people in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. 12 people, 13? Tiny numbers by the logic of war. Benghazi, 4 people. It's maybe if we lost a ship or 2, a couple of pilots. Who knows? Wouldn't any of the Iran allies in the region work together against us if we attack? Iran allies. What allies? They kind of control a military in Iraq, more or less. They have they have sympathetic forces in Syria. You have Hezbollah. Not really anything. I can't really do anything against America, Hezbollah want a party. They don't have the ability to do anything against carrier groups, Again, we're not talking about resisting, like, the IDF stepping into your country. We're talking about carrier groups. We're like the firepower we're talking about here is just beyond insurgency. I could take them? Yeah. Bosh, do something. Mamdani, do something. Hypersonic missiles, the main concern. They don't have what they would need to threaten us. I mean, we'll see what, yeah. The number of destroyers with those carriers is surprisingly low. I don't know what a massive drone and missile attack could achieve with a carrier net of just 4 destroyers. You mean like we wouldn't be able to shoot enough of them down? I'm not a military. I can't say. I think it's reasonable for me to assume that a U.S. carrier group probably represents an insurmountable amount of firepower to a country like Iran, and we have 2 of them, plus a bunch of other stuff. So we also have been transporting a fuck ton of anti-air batteries over into the region, so we're probably preparing for drone swarms, you know? The only thing we couldn't do much about would be those hypersonic missiles. And how many do they have? It's probably not enough to... Yeesh. That's a lot of text. What's insane is every single war game the Pentagon has done shows the U.S. losing in a situation like this. In bombing Iran to dust, I promise you that's not the case. We're not occupying them. We're just vaporizing them. There's a difference. I think those war sims are with China. There's no war sim where we don't have the ability to maintain like air superiority over Iran. There's always a risk though. Well, death cult. We'll see how it goes. I don't think the U.S. is totalitarian enough to not deal with the optics of vaporizing Iran. I mean, look at what we did to Gaza, man. I don't know. China would not fight America over Iran. They're not going to get involved.